Here's an interesting theory that I think more people need to hear. Instead of imagining your perfect life, everything being exactly the way you want it, imagine the absolute worst version you can possibly think of. Why would I do that, you might ask? Well, knowing what you don't want and don't like based on past experiences is much easier and much more realistic than imagining things you've never experienced before. This anti-vision should scare you, or at the very least, make you uncomfortable. Through that, you can form a new plan, a new set of goals. Rather than working towards a life you think you want, work towards a life that is the opposite of what you don't want. Sometimes, or maybe even a lot of the times, we can feel like we're just kind of stuck. Nothing's really going anywhere. We're not really moving. We're just kind of stagnant and nothing's really changing. And this doesn't even happen just when you don't actually do anything. This might also feel like when you're trying a lot. You're trying to make some changes, you're trying new things out, you're trying to do this, that, and the other, and nothing really seems to shift anywhere. You're just kind of stuck. And as the days and weeks and months go by, we're just kind of sat around, just kind of existing. It's almost like we kind of start to accept the fact that nothing is really changing. And then that causes us to feel even more stuck than we felt before. And it all just has this really bad knock-on effect on itself. But I want to tell you that I don't believe that's actually the worst thing, because you're still here, you're still existing, you're still figuring things out. And honestly, at times, sometimes it might even take you years. Sometimes people don't figure things out until they're 28, 30, 35. And that is when their life seemingly falls into place. Because I believe that's another expectation people tend to put on themselves. It's almost kind of like by this time, or by this age, I need to have this figured out. By this age, I need to be married. By this age, by this age, by this age. There isn't a timeline. Nothing has a pinpoint in your timeline where this belongs there, this belongs there. Obviously, you can set yourself goals. You could say in 6 months' time, I want to be able to lift this much or run this far or be able to do this or have this skill under my belt. That's awesome. That's fine. Because those are something you just kind of learn, and it's kind of then up to you to make that happen. But certain things you can't really control. They're really just outside of your zone, and they'll just happen when they happen. So I'm gonna need you to stop having that expectation of this chronological timeline of your life, because you're not too late, you're not too quick, you are just on time where you need to be right now. Because every single action you take and everything that you do will lead you down a certain path, will essentially give you results. It might not be what you want right now, but maybe the things you're doing right now will give you the results you want in 2 or 5 years' time. You never know. Or maybe in 2 weeks' time. You genuinely just never know. Giving up is easy, right? Just saying, look, I can't figure this out, I don't care anymore, I'm just going to throw in the towel, I'm not bothered. But I know that you are bothered. I know that you do care. And you obviously want to figure it out because it's frustrating you. And when it frustrates you, it obviously means something to you, right? Because like I mentioned, you don't know when you're going to figure it out. But you will. But you will never figure it out if you decide to stop. That's the key thing here. Because if you try, it's going to take you X amount of time. But if you stop, then it's going to take forever because you're no longer trying. And I believe that one of the best ways to figure things out, to figure out what you want out of life, is to create an anti-vision for yourself, because it is much easier to create something from the things you don't like than create something from things you've never experienced before. And in the next section, we're going to go a lot more into detail about that. So like we were saying, one of the best ways, and maybe even the easiest ways to progress forward when you don't actually know what you want, is to think about things you don't want. And I know that might sound a little bit weird, but when you really think about it, it is much easier for us to sit there thinking about, I don't like this, I hate that, I'm not a fan of this, than thinking about things, well, that sounds nice, oh, I like the sound of that, because we don't actually know if we like them or not, because we haven't experienced them yet. That's just what we want. But what I'm going to want you to do is, I'm going to want you to pause the video, and I'm going to need you to write down all the things you don't want out of life. Whether that's on a piece of paper, on a notepad on your phone, doesn't matter. But the point is, if you write down loneliness, obviously that's something you don't want. You want something that's filled with friends, a partner, love. You want that out of your life. If you write down angry, you obviously don't want that. You don't want to just be living through life pissed off all the time. You want to live a happy, fulfilling life where you can just enjoy yourself. So I want you to think of the most important things to you that you really don't like. right now, whether that's in your life or just from what you've seen. But I want you to write them all down, because whatever you write down, there's a very big chance you would either want or wouldn't mind the exact opposite of that thing. Creating this anti-vision of your future life can really propel you in the right direction. Because the way I see it, if I'm working towards something, there's a very big chance I'm going to sit there and I'm going to lay out, okay, I'm going to have to do this, 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 and this. But that's only after educating myself as to what I actually need to do. Whereas the beautiful thing about the anti-vision is that I don't believe I actually need to do anything. Because if I wrote down sad, for example, then obviously the opposite of that will be happy. One of the ways to be happy is to be grateful for what you have right now, currently. I don't actually need to do anything in order to achieve that goal. The only thing I need to do is I need to shift my mindset, and I need to think about things differently. Obviously, everything is subjective to the individual thinking about it, because one person might value family over money, one person might value experiences over money, one person might value health over this, over that, and it's just everybody will value different things over different things. If you were to imagine that 100 people did this in the same room and 99 of them shared the same common thing and you didn't, it doesn't mean yours is wrong, and it doesn't mean that you're weird or you don't fit in. It's none of that. It's just what you value the most. Because the reality of it is, if you want to be mega filthy rich and live in some beautiful glass apartment in somewhere like New York City, or just be a hermit somewhere off in the forest in a cool little cabin on your own, it doesn't matter. It's your vision. And I want you to remember that. First of all, we know we're stuck. Second of all, we have our anti-vision now. So the third and final step now is to take steps towards the anti-vision, or technically away from it. Because obviously if you did what I asked you to do in the last section, or you already know what your anti-vision looks like, now it really is just a matter of putting things into perspective and making slight changes and adjustments. And I know I mentioned it's mostly a mindset change, but obviously there are going to be certain things you're going to have to do, as well as just think differently, so to speak. Obviously all of us are going to have different goals, and all of us are going to value different things over others, which will essentially mean we're going to have to start doing different things. If one of your values is health, then obviously you're going to have to make changes to your diet, start the gym, start running, whatever it may be. If one of your values is finances, you're either going to have to go and look for a different job, work harder at what you currently do, or find a second thing to do. If one of your values is love, that will actually depend on what you're like right now. Because if you're content with yourself, you're happy with who you are, you support yourself, and you don't despise who you are, then love to you should more than likely look like looking for somebody to enjoy life with. If you're miserable, if you don't like who you are, then love for you will be internal. You start looking at things within, you start working on yourself, you start working towards loving who you are. So I suppose it depends on the value, it depends on who you are, and it depends on what you want the most out of life. But now it's all about steps. Read about it, look into it, ask someone who's been there before. There's no shame in it, there's no shame in having a conversation with people, and just see what you can do. And do not worry if you don't have any answer right now, even about the things you don't like, because it's a big thing and you might need to sit down and have a think about it. And for all you know, this will be stuck in your mind for a few days, and in 3, 4, 5 days time, it'll just click and all of a sudden you'll be like, this is it. And then you'll have your answer. But it is just a matter of thinking about it, because that's the first step. Once you think about what you want, then it's a matter of doing things towards that. Because nothing will ever change until you change. Thank you very much for tuning in to this week's video. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. And if there's absolutely anything you'd like to have a chat about, please leave a comment. I'll be more than happy to get back to you. Last week, we spoke about doing things alone, because nobody is coming to save you. And it's exactly the same with this. This is your vision. These are your steps. You're going to have to do what you're going to have to do. And sometimes you can't rely on anybody else. So I have a feeling that video will go hand in hand with this one. So I'm going to leave down the screen right here for you to click. And hopefully I'll see you there. Thank you and bye-bye.